I haven't made a YouTube video in 2 weeks. Okay, this week I'm playing Deadlight. According to Wikipedia, Deadlight is a generic zombie game. Deadlight is a 2.5D post-apocalyptic side-scroller that was released in 2012 for Xbox Live Arcade and Windows PC. The game was developed by Tequila Works and it was published by Microsoft Game Studios. Concept: Deadlight takes place in an alternate reality of 1986 Seattle, Washington, after a mysterious illness causes most of the population to turn into zombie shadows. The game follows Randall Wayne, a park ranger from Canada who is searching for his missing family. Deadlight uses the Unreal Engine and is rendered in 3D, but the game plays like an old 2D platformer such as Prince of Persia or the Another World series. At least that's what Wikipedia says. Okay, let's jump into the review. Presentation. Deadlight's graphics are really nice. The entire game has a great atmosphere and the art direction is spot on for a post-apocalyptic city. The entire look of the game is very cinematic and the way it handles its 2D perspective is great. Its use of contrast really helps differentiate the background and foreground without breaking immersion. There are so many little details in the background, and that's what's great about the graphics in this game. It's refreshing to see a studio make almost every scene of the game look great, no matter how long you'll actually see it. My only major complaint about the graphics of the game is its lack of a graphical menu option. All you get is a simple quality slider, and honestly with a modern engine like Unreal, games should always have at least a few options so you can optimize your experience. The sound effects and soundtrack are high quality and fit into the game quite well. The soundtrack really adds some tension to several of the game's more exciting moments, and also adds emotion and depth to the world during the slower parts. It really makes the world seem believable. To a point. Also, much of the game's dialogue would just not work without the soundtrack adding something behind the words that would otherwise fall flat. Overall, the presentation of this game is its best quality. The images on Steam alone were the reason I bought this game a few years back. It's high quality and doesn't sacrifice detail like many other Xbox Live Arcade titles. I also appreciate the game doesn't use its 1980s era plot to oversaturate the world with nostalgia. It would have been easy to do, and instead 1986 Seattle looks a lot like cities today, which just adds to the realistic atmosphere. Story. The story in Deadlight is mediocre. For a game with such a unique presentation and setting, I thought the story might be more nuanced, but it's not. The game follows Randall Wayne, a park ranger searching for his family. It almost seems like Randall is a joke character meant to play off the gruff, emotionless, and raspy voiced protagonist who really has a heart deep down. You never really learn much about his past except for a few dream sequences that don't reveal much. The ending of the story reveals more about Randall's past, but it's so predictable I already knew what was going to happen less than halfway into the game. It's not that the type of story they wanted to tell can't work. It's that they were trying to fit too much emotion into a game that for most users probably won't last more than 3 hours. There's simply not enough time for us to get to know this character, and in the end his bland dialogue only seems to hurt the excellent atmosphere they created. And the game's comic-style cutscenes feel very cheap compared to the in-game graphics. For the most part, the story is at least to the point without much fluff. Well, except for the entire middle chapter of the game. The middle chapter focuses on a character named the Rat, a mysterious man who has mastered the sewers of Seattle. Not to get into spoilers, but the Rat comes into the game as a Deus Ex Machina type plot device, and he doesn't help the feel of the game. Before his character shows up, the game seemed very believable, but afterwards, it's just hard to take the game seriously. A character named the Rat, who is the master of the sewers? Can you imagine something like that in The Last of Us? It's just so out of place and comical, I'm not sure what they were aiming for. And that's the issue of the entire story. They could have made a more subtle game that didn't need to spoon feed you the drama and emotion. And even if the plot wasn't as grandiose, it would have had a more lasting effect. A more minimalist approach would have served the game's story well. Gameplay. From the footage, I'm sure you can tell this is a 2D side-scrolling parkour action puzzle game. The game focuses on using your environment and avoiding conflict with zombie shadows, which is an appreciated change of pace for this genre. There's some limited gunplay, but it's all about knowing when to use your gun and when not to. The mechanics of the game are actually very good, and I really like the core concepts the game operates on. using your wits instead of just shooting up the entire screen. Except the controls don't work. The controls are terrible. I use an Xbox 360 controller to play and it was almost unbearable. The controls are only what I can describe as floaty. The game acts like it's a quick-paced, tight 2D side-scroller, but the controls don't act that way. I found myself dying more because of the laggy controls than the actual gameplay itself. It's incredibly frustrating that the bad controls caused me to die over and over on what was supposed to be a very cinematic scene. That scene was ruined because the action was faster than what the controls could keep up with. For a game with 3 hours of gameplay, it's pretty bad that these issues were not resolved. The game also doesn't build much on its gameplay. For example, the middle section of the game is focused entirely on platforming and puzzle solving, and that's fine, but once you get through that section, those elements really don't show up again. The game does a poor job at building your skills up to have a fun, challenging ending where all you've learned is applied. In the end, the game feels too segmented. Its core concepts are cool, but are underutilized and don't end up serving the story or overall progression of the game. Conclusion. So would I recommend Deadlight? For a game with 3 hours of gameplay and a played out storyline, I can't recommend this game, especially not for its $15 price tag. However nice the atmosphere is and however good some of the concepts were, the game just doesn't deliver. The entire experience feels rushed, with little to no character development, a dull story with bad dialogue, and gameplay that is held back by broken controls. The negatives just outweigh the positives. Okay everybody, that was my video for this week. I hope you liked it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. Leave a comment in the comments section and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this one in the future. See ya.